Welcome back to the internet, everybody. Thanks to everybody who joined me for my very first live stream on this channel. It was pretty fun, you know. Like I said, I don't usually respond to comments in the videos that much, so maybe I'll try to do like an hour-long live stream every Sunday and see how it goes. Just a fun way to come hang out, talk about whatever, ask questions. But we're finally back to regular stories again, you know. After taking such a long break this whole weekend, it feels like it's been a while. But first, do you ever come across people that you just have to wonder, how can any person be this terrible? Well, we have somebody on Yahoo Answers asking, can you make a male babysitter pay child support? So I'm a single mom going to college with my sister. A couple weeks ago, I asked my neighbor, a nice guy, if he could watch the kids for 2 hours while I went to class and my sister wasn't home. And he agreed. If he babysits and doesn't accept pay, can I sue him for child support because he took on a fatherly role? I'm sure I can convince a court that he accepted a fatherly role, which is how who owes child support is determined in my state. Edit, the real dad died in a car accident almost 7 years ago. Wow, so a guy was nice enough to not charge you for his services, and in return you want to sue him for that? I would imagine you don't make close friends too easily. Now I've got 14 people, including me, walk out in protest. So Friday the 13th, it was glorious, for all intents and purposes. I run day-to-day operations for a decent-sized company. We have a president who runs the company in-house. He can be tedious, overwhelming, and an all-around jerk sometimes. Other times, he can be cool as can be. This was one of those times, and he was an overbearing, micromanaging dickbag. As shop foreman, I take my job seriously with morale. If my guys aren't happy, good product isn't produced. If good product isn't produced, customers aren't happy. Looking towards quality control, it doesn't help when guys are overworked, underpaid, and underappreciated. Friday was one of those days that started out well, but by 6:40 a.m., it had deteriorated to crap. No, we don't officially start work until 7 a.m. After the start, it was complain about this, micromanage that, several people being cussed at and belittled. Everyone had had enough. Once in our programming office, the idea was floated by someone that we should walk out. He can't fire us all. Now, we've all joked about this time after time, but it's never been more than a thought. We grit our teeth and bear it. That day was something different. After getting yelled at again for something out of my control, I finally said F it. When someone asked if I was in and serious, I said yes. Then it snowballed from there. A total of 20 were supposed to walk out, but due to cold feet and a few taking a crap, only 14 made it. At 10 a.m. we made our move. I told everyone to wait until he would be distracted with a machine and we'd all clock out and leave. We all waited. When he was distracted, I gave the roundup signal, and everyone left. A few stopped for beer to relax. We weren't intending on going back to negotiate until Monday. We all met at a guy's house and discussed why we walked, what we wanted, and what our terms were. One thing was very clear. We all came back, or no one did. After talking for 2.5 hours and coming to our terms, we decided to head back after a text from him. We were going to corner him. We were going to talk it straight, or we weren't working anymore. The talk lasted almost 2 hours, with both parties flexing their given muscles at some point. But one thing was made clear. Things were going to change, or we'd all go look for new jobs. After several people were threatened with being fired, and none being let go, we came to terms that benefited us. For once, our workplace had so much morale. People were excited to work again. We went back to work with a purpose, agenda, and pride. This was the first Monday I've looked forward to work in a year. Even the guys who couldn't come, the people in the main office, we stirred the pot. We've made it known we're not going to go through with this anymore. I'll vouch for any of my men, and I'd do it again in a heartbeat. You know, that's kind of interesting. I've heard of a lot of people who just mass quit a job, but I guess I never really thought about just like everyone taking half a day off. Show a company what your team is actually worth when it's gone. Well, I'm glad it worked out for them. Put $20 on pump 5. So an angry old lady came into my gas station and had a simple request. Put $20 on pump 5. One problem. No one was on pump 5. I pointed that out to her and asked her what side of the building she was on, so I could figure out which pump she was on. So, like a logical human being, she proceeded to cuss me out, tell me that back-talking the customer wasn't a thing back in her day. I said, I'm sorry, you're right, let me put $20 on pump 5. She went out to the other side of the building and tried to pump. By this point, someone had pulled up into pump 5 and started pumping. There's no system in place to tell people there's cash on the pump, so he went through the motions of paying with his card, but it never charged him. The old lady comes back inside yelling at me, why won't it pump for me? I just pointed the sign on the counter that explains that the cashier is not liable if you tell them the wrong number pump and let her scream until she was done. Not my problem, lady. You know, if back-talking the customer wasn't a thing back in her day, then they must have just made mistakes like this left and right. Because apparently trying to correct someone's mistake is back-talking them. Which, now that I think about it, all of you guys who always call me out because I mispronounce words all the time, you're all just back-talking me. You don't have kids, you should pay for me. So I had a friend I would go to yoga with often. We started going to lunch after our workout. It was fun. We would sit on this amazing balcony and relax and have our lunch while talking about everything that had gone on that week. The first week, the waiter gave me the bill, and without a second thought, I just paid it. Normally I've done the, I get this time, you get next time thing. Only thing is, the second time, the waitress handed it straight to me again. I look at my friend, who starts getting her things ready to go, and I again just pay it, although slightly confused. Then the third time, before the same thing happened, I asked the waitress the reason I kept getting the full bill from her. I asked while my dining partner was away. The waitress looked uncomfortable, and stated my friend each time told her that I was paying. I told the waitress to please split the bill, and no such arrangement had been made. My friend returned to the table and ordered another drink, and I asked the waitress for my bill so I could be checked out. She brought both of our bills, and I pull out my debit card to pay for my part. I owed $12.32, much more manageable for my budget. My friend's bill was $38.24, about average of her last two bills. My friend looked at the waitress confused. Oh no, I'm not paying for that. Put it on her tab. I look at her with question. Excuse me? Her response, you paid the last 2 times. I know I did. That is why I'm surprised you're not paying for me this time. That is when she said the annoying words, I have kids. You don't. You can afford it. Excuse me? I said, clearly offended. If you cannot afford it, then why are you consistently ordering 3 times my bill? I glared at her. She looked at me and said, you know I don't get to go out much. I deserve this. I was so frustrated. Yeah, you deserve it, but not on my dime. And you go out all the time. She called me selfish and clarified she had no card or money to pay for her part. The waitress said she needed payment from one of us, or the police would be called. I paid her part of the bill and left a note and 0% tip on my receipt. I stopped talking to my entitled friend, who made it a point to tell everyone in class she was so confused, did not understand what the problem was, and found me selfish considering it was only $38. Which, if you ever read this, I hope you choke. The restaurant called and asked if they could do anything. I just told them to train staff regarding checkout procedures. It was an odd situation for me. I was uncomfortable, and I feel threatening police on me for food and drink I did not order or touch was uncalled for. I never went back. You should have just paid your bill, and then walked out, and then let them call the police on your friend. It's a win-win. You don't have to pay for her, and you get to get rid of her. Man-child manager screws himself over. So on a Saturday, I was scheduled for a double shift, which meant I'd be spending 12 hours of my life at work. Not wanting to be negative, I mentally prepared myself to have a great day and make some money. Unfortunately, my manager had other plans, and he had decided the opposite. The morning started off fine, came in and did my opening duties. At about 12, another server came in for her shift, the owner's daughter, still training, and we started to get a few tables. Nothing I couldn't handle, but because she was new, I had no choice but to help her out a lot. My manager was getting annoyed with the new girl, but because she was the daughter's boss, he took his frustration out on me. At one point, the phones had been ringing off the hook for reservations, and as I was speaking to a customer, he angrily yanks the phone out of my hands, mid-sentence, and proceeded to take the reservation. I was left stunned, as was the new girl. As the shift went on, he continued to become more stressed and frustrated. He started speaking down to me, in a slowed-down way, as if I was stupid. The last straw for me was when he asked me if I was on drugs because I forgot to transfer a reservation into our tablet. I didn't answer, and he then asked me if I'd been drinking last night, and told me he was going to start scheduling me every night so I would stop drinking. No clue where this came from, as I stayed home the night before. This 40-year-old, no-friend, having man-child was speaking down to me, a 27-year-old woman, as if he was better than me. At this point, I decided I would not finish my shift that night, as I refused to be his punching bag. I set up the night crew and waited until another server came in. I blocked everyone's number and calmly walked out the back door without looking back. I did message someone to let them know I hadn't dropped dead in a garbage bin. I haven't unblocked the manager, as I'm afraid to read what psycho crap he texted me. P.S. There's a long lineup of women who have walked out of this place mid-shift because of this a-hole. Yeah, I would say if you ever run into bosses like this, just take off, find something else. So I have sort of a financial strategy that I live by that I know not everybody can do this, but it's something I really like. Is that I live on as tight a budget as possible almost all the time. And as I'm earning money from a job, I'm usually just piling up more and more savings. So that at some point, if I ever just say, alright, I'm done with this job, I'm leaving, then I can just live off of savings for a while I look for another one. When you have financial security, it basically means you never have to force yourself into being miserable. Because the pain of being unemployed is not as bad as the pain of being in a miserable job. But we got one more story for today. The restaurant, the Karen, and the spatula. So this happened 2 days ago during my lunch break. While the Karen's screeching was not directed at me, I was able to observe it all go down firsthand. So some backstory. I've been going to the same restaurant for lunch for the past 2 months. It's a small place, but the food is amazing and prices are low. As any regular, I eventually got pretty friendly with the staff and the waiters. I tip well and always try to be smiling and nice. They deserve it. As such, I know everyone who works there and the manager's girlfriend. She comes in from time to have lunch around the same time I do, and we greet each other with a nod and a smile. That's all the backstory you need. Now to the show. As usual, I arrive around 1 p.m. and see the Karen walking just slightly behind me with her kid. I open the door to the restaurant and hold it so that they can pass. I'll let you guess if she said thank you or not. We go in and the restaurant is packed. There are only 3 open tables, so Karen and her kid take one and I take the other. Literally a minute later, the manager's girlfriend walks in. She goes up to the bar and talks with her boyfriend, briefly. Due to the chaos, both of the waiters are overwhelmed, and the girlfriend helps one of them carry a set of trays to a table. She's cool like that and sits down on the last remaining table. Admittedly, service was kinda slow, but due to the sheer amount of people, it was understandable. Well, understandable for me, not the Karen. At some point, she just scoffs and bolts up, walking to the girlfriend's table. She says, "Excuse me, can we order?" She says, "Oh, I'm sorry, what?" She says, "Can we order? We've been waiting for 10 minutes. She says, "You'll have to ask a waiter. I don't work here." She says, "Of course you do. I saw you carry trays." She says, "Nah, that was just to help." She says, "And now you are taking a break? You just came in. How can you be so lazy?" She says, "Seriously, ma'am, I don't work here." She says, "BS, I saw you. You have to take my order." So at this point, a waiter manages to get to them. Meanwhile, I can see her daughter literally trying to unsubscribe from existence. The waiter says, "Ma'am, is there a problem here?" "This lady beep won't take my order." Says, "Well, she doesn't work here. I can't." "I saw her working. I want you to talk to your manager. She can't be like that." The waiter just shrugs and asks the manager to come. The manager says, "Ma'am, what's going on?" Says, "She refuses to serve me. You have to discipline her right now." So the manager, without even blinking, "I will be sure to spank her with the hardest spatula we have later, but at the moment she doesn't work here and can't help you. Waiter here will be happy to take your order." Karen is just sitting there, mouth gaping, as if she was struck by the lightning of Zeus himself. The restaurant is quiet. The girlfriend is blushing a bit, but smiling. I'm doing my best not to laugh out loud, and failing. You can hear muffled chuckles from other tables. After about 20 seconds, the Karen huffs and drags her poor kid out of the restaurant. I tipped a lot that day. Oh boy, the girlfriend is gonna get some discipline tonight. Well, we do have a question for today, but it is a pretty short one. What's the worst "I don't fit in here" experience you've ever had? So I once interviewed for a job, and was taken around the office to meet everyone and see how things worked. But it was one of those types of places where they do morning cheers, everyone is ultra peppy and cutthroat. It was a sales job with competitive territories, and the energy was just too much. As an introverted, laid-back, and uncompetitive worker, I 100% did not belong in that environment. Yeah, I know the feeling. But one thing I've learned over the years, if you quit a job, like within the first week, I'd say that that's not always like a really bad thing. Because like sometimes you just get a job not really knowing what you're getting into, and then you just immediately know that it's not the right job for you. So like, don't feel so bad if you're just like ready to quit on day one. I mean, sometimes if you stick through it, like, you know, you'll get better, but I know how that goes. Look at Faye. You having a good time? She's funny. In my late 20s, and going to the same clothing store I've been going to for over a decade, seeing 12-plus-year-old girls, feeling lost, not knowing where to shop. I wouldn't worry about that too much, just keep dressing how you want. To be honest, I still wear some of the same clothes I wore when I was 12. I honestly have not gotten any taller or heavier since I was about 14. I wanted to learn to play guitar. Found out about a class for a beginner sessions for adults. Call up, they say yeah, come along, and we have a mixed group and we will see you in the morning. Great. Turned up to this little church-like building and head in. The guy says, "You must be so-and-so. Take a seat and we will get going in a minute." I was around 27 at the time. So please know, I'm first to arrive, and the seats were tiny, but I didn't think anything of it at the time. Just assumed that it was what was available. The next minute, a group of small children rush in and take their places. Around 5 or 6 years old, with their guitars. Teachers start taking the lessons. I'm obviously feeling awkward, as I'm like the Tom Hanks and big, and wanting to get out as soon as possible, but too polite to just get up and walk out. The teacher then announces that we will be getting up on stage at the end to show what we've learned. Please note that these little turds are 10 times better than me, but I'm committed now, and maybe it won't be so bad. Until the door opens, and all the parents walk in to watch the show. So there I was, sitting on a little chair with my knees higher than my head, strumming along to some tune I couldn't play, surrounded by 5 or 6-year-olds, and parents looking at me with the face you know wants to laugh. Oh, that's terrible. But yeah, I can really relate to people who just feel out of place. Like I've mentioned over time that I usually have a hard time finding reasons to leave the house or, get out and do stuff. So there was like a few times where I would just like go to a club by myself, and it was just so awkward that like I even cringe thinking about it. I mean, there were quite a few times like that where it's just like, this is so out of my comfort zone. I'm just gonna go do it, and it'll be a great time. There'll be lots of people there. I'll be able to talk and make friends. And it's like I show up, I just stand there awkwardly. Nobody talks to me. I don't talk to anybody else, and then I go home trying to forget what just happened. Luckily, I've gotten a little smarter over the years, and I know what not to get into. But anyway, that's the end of Monday's video. Hope you guys are having a good week. So yeah, I mentioned in the live stream last night, what I was planning on doing is I'll probably do like, these regular entitled parent stories like Monday through Friday, and then have like a scary story video on Saturday night, and then a live stream sometime on Sunday. That way we can mix it up, have different stuff throughout the week, and yeah, we'll try this out, see how it goes. So thanks for watching.
You're stuck to the carpet. Bye, 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 bye.